We are doing it because it is the right thing to do. And this is why the theme for this year is the power of memory. I don't know whether it's God's way or it's nature. Something happened to Chinamasa this week. His house went on fire. And when I was reading this sad story about this house that went on fire, then I saw him saying, I've lost my priceless library. And I know what it means to lose a library. We have lost family photos. And then I said, the good thing is that in that bad situation, the good thing is that he's experiencing the same things that the victims of Gukurahundi experienced. The ZANU-PF government killed people during the Gukurahundi genocide. And they were killing people and burning their houses. And I talked to one person whose documentary is part of the documentary that we're going to launch on Friday. And this guy said, I was heading cattle with my father. He was taken, he was killed. After they killing him, they came to our home and they burnt the homestead. And what is painful is that this guy says they don't even have a single picture of their father. So kids who were younger than him, his siblings, who were 3, 4, and below, don't know how their father looks like. So when Comrade Chinamasa said he has lost I said, I'm sure they have pictures on social media. At least you are alive, they can still have pictures with you. But the guy that I talked to in Johannesburg, his father is not there. He cannot take a picture with his father. So naturally as it is, it should just give an idea of how it feels to lose your personal possessions, to lose your father and the pictures. There are some people that we have tried to interview and you say, do you have a picture of how he looked like? They don't. Imagine how you have no idea how your father looks like. So when we talk about Gukurahundi, we are not politicking. We are not politicians. When we talk about Gukurahundi, we are not writing a donor proposal. We are talking about something that happened. We will say it today, we said it yesterday, we will say it tomorrow. Whether they want, they are screaming, they are making noise, we will say it until they hear it. But we're also learning from them. They don't like sanctions. Look at how they are mobilizing in terms of sanctions. First of all, there was a 2 million signature. Then now we have the SADC kind of thing, lobbying. We are going to the international community. People are, demonstrating in London, in Washington, and all those kind of things. And I like the strategy, not necessarily the message, but the strategy of advocacy. They are covering every corner. So what stops us of making Gukurahundi not only a national issue, not only a Pechudika-Zulu issue, but a regional issue, an international issue? When are we going to have a demonstration in New York demanding justice for Gukurahundi victims? When are we going to have a SADC Solidarity March, a SADC Solidarity Day on Gukurahundi? I know the president has said, let's talk about it. I hope he meant it. But if we are talking about it, how do we talk about it when memorial plaques that are put are destroyed? And we have no doubt who destroys the memorial plaque. We know them and they know themselves. The only thing that we can ask is, why are they doing it? So I hope that in our lifetime, the victims of Gukurahundi are going to have justice. And I hope that those who were responsible, because it's not a secret that the ZANU-PF-led government decided in December 1982, in a central committee meeting, that they are going to massacre the Ndebeles. It's well documented. It's there. So when we talk about Gukurahundi, we are not talking about fiction. We are not talking about propaganda. We are talking about, it's like science. If you mix water and sodium, this will be the solution. We are talking about something that we have proof We can say, yes, you said this. Yes, this is what happened. And what we are simply asking is, stage number one, let's tell the truth. What happened? If we can tell the truth about what happened, then the next stages are going to follow naturally. For me, I've always had the problem, no, the government should apologize. And I say, no, they cannot apologize before they first of all acknowledge. Before there's truth-telling. Because umuntu akuchanga impama ethi sorry sekuphelile. Angiyokubula ukuthi kade unjayelani. But sengiqolisile kade ufunani. You know. So before you xolisa, first of all tell me what happened. And awumela ngikucela ukuthi ngicela ungiqolise. You know, if you are asking for forgiveness, it is because you have realized that you are sorry and what you did is wrong. You should not ask for forgiveness because there's 2023 coming up and you think that you are not going to do well in Matabeleland. So I will always question the sincerity of the government. Because in 2019, when some of us, civil society, met the president at State House where I was arrested, there was a 10-point plan. And one of those things in the 10-point plan was, we are going to give the victims of Gukurahundi documents. Kwase 2020, 2021, nothing happened. Then we said, okay. Then we had the process of the chiefs. And they said, one of the things that we're going to do is the documents. So if we are not really honest enough to give someone a document, can we even expect any other thing? So I'm not the main speaker, so I'm not going to say a lot of things. But these are things that are very passionate. I'm very passionate about. These are things that are close to my heart, because when I decided to do journalism, I told my family that my job, my main reason why I did journalism was because I wanted to document Gukurahundi. Because of the so many things that happened to my family. Because every time we had a gathering, whether we Christmas or we end up talking about Gukurahundi. We end up talking about someone who's not there with us because they were killed during Gukurahundi. And growing up at home, there was a bullet hole on the floor in one of the rooms, of whose story I'm not yet ready to talk about. But it's not something that I read in the books. It's not something that I was told by the Western world. I've never met any American diplomat saying, go and talk about Gukurahundi. I've met them saying, you know, the Gukurahundi happened. By the way, why were you silent? So it irritates me when I hear someone saying, you're doing it for donor funding. And I ask them, so are they doing sanctions for donor funding? Who's funding them to march around saying sanctions should be removed? It's a debate for another day. So thank you very much. And we thank you for coming to this event. We will be going on for a week. Most of our events will be online. We have quite interesting lectures and public lectures that are going on. And of course, at the end of the day, it is the power of memory that matters. And it is my belief that the issue of Gukurahundi is going to be solved one day. Don't expect the results today. If you are a Christian, we talk on Moses was taken on a mountain and he was told, there is Canaan, but you might not reach it. But he had an idea of how Canaan looked like. So not all of us will be there when the issue of Gukurahundi is finally solved. But those who will see the finality would say, yeah, it started way back. When, yesterday when I thought about this event, I looked back at the people that I interviewed in 2006, or Inosinkala, or Umabena. Recently, I talked to Omishek Velapi Spanda, Otumsani Mpofu, Otumiso Tabengwa. All these people are no longer there. When I watched the first documentary, The Moment of Madness, I think 3/4 of the victims are done. They are gone. The people that we interviewed the last year, I think 6 of them died because of COVID. But the good thing is that their stories have been recorded. And we keep going. So it's not going to be a short run. It's not abanye ababephikisana lathi ngeGukurahundi baphume ezikhundleni babuya bazijoyina kuma terraces bathi kwaku wrong. So we keep going. It's not going to be easy. You just need to develop a thick skin, because you'll be accused of all sorts. Finally, we are not getting millions of dollars. There's always this impression that if you are into the Gukurahundi business. When we finish this event, I'll actually ask you to push my car because it can't start on its own. It needs to be pushed because I don't have $100 to buy the battery. So if I had millions of dollars, I'll be having a helipad somewhere here. So there is no money in this business, but there is justice to be served in this business. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ndebele. And for those joining us online, this is the Asakhe Film Festival, and the theme this year is the power of memory. Our guest of honor, as Mr. Ndebele mentioned, came in all the way from South Africa, and he's Mr. Siposami Malunga, and he's the director of OSISA, which is the Open Society Initiative of Southern Africa. Please give him an extra big round of applause. Kalim Chaili Zandla, as he comes through to give us his address. Please clap until he gets to the microphone and starts speaking.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. This is home for me. Those of you who follow Facebook may remember the very first interview I did on Gukurahundi with Zenzele. We're sitting here. You remember that interview? It was after the new dispensation. No, the new dispensation did not come in. It was just after the coup. We hadn't even had the elections. For me, I can't say I'm happy, because one can never be happy to talk about Gukurahundi. It's not a happy subject. It can never be. Many of us, in one way or another, were affected by Gukurahundi. There's absolutely no one I know in Matabeleland who was not affected by Gukurahundi. Nobody. And I say nobody was unaffected by Gukurahundi. Just the sheer scale of the atrocity meant that everyone was affected. Kule sihlobo, kulo mzala, kulo malume, kulo babakazi, kulo gogo, whether it is a direct or indirect relative, Matabeleland was affected. Not even Matabeleland only, but the whole country was affected by Gukurahundi. So when we say we have to address Gukurahundi, we have to resolve Gukurahundi, we are not saying it because we are begging. We are demanding it. We are demanding that Gukurahundi be resolved. I was thinking as I was coming here, what can I say? So many stories of Gukurahundi have been told. We've been working alongside Ozenzele, Shari, and many other comrades on this journey for a long time. Now, all the people who've been denying Gukurahundi, do you know what book they use, what document they use in their defense of Gukurahundi or in their arguments? Can somebody guess? If you find somebody who is defending Gukurahundi or who is arguing that it wasn't so serious, guess, they use breaking the silence. Can you believe it? And you won't even believe the process of breaking the silence. How breaking the silence was finalized, was developed. I was a little student at the time. I was at university. And I used to work at the Bulawayo Legal Project Center with David Coulter, Debbie Barron, Barney Greenland, and Paul Chizuze, who disappeared. We're going to watch a movie about the Slovela 12. Paul Chizuze disappeared into thin air. Just disappeared. Can you imagine a human being disappearing? Just disappearing. He was in the team. He was a paralegal, senior to me. And we used to do a lot of documentation of the cases of Gukurahundi. Eventually, Shari was the lead writer of Breaking the Silence. Now you argue with anybody and you say, no. The casualties of Gukurahundi were in the tens of thousands. No. Breaking the Silence says it was 3,000. You say, come on. Now you, who first refused for Breaking the Silence to be published, and there's a big story behind the story if you want to know how it ended up being published. Somebody was very naughty. because the bishops were not sure whether it should be published. At some point, they were like, well, because Mugabe was angry when he was shown the report. Mugabe said, you are not publishing this thing. And somebody leaked it. I'm not going to say who leaked it, but then the next day it was all over. So what I'm trying to say is that nobody is going to give us anything. Nobody is going to give you any acknowledgement. Nobody is going to give you any apology. Nobody is going to say sorry. Ultimately, you are going to have to demand justice yourself. They don't owe you anything. What do they owe you? What do they owe you? Because remember that what you have seen here is that Gukurahundi was the worst. I wrote a paper which should be coming out it's delayed now, it's in April. It's called The History of Atrocity. It's called The History of Atrocity. And it chronicles atrocity in post-independent Zimbabwe. It starts with Gukurahundi, and it goes all the way to 2020, to July 31 protests. And the process of writing that for me was so fascinating, because I realized that because of impunity, we have had continuous violation of human rights. So impunity is what has led to continued atrocity. The fact that we had, during the war, we had serious crimes on both sides. The guerrillas committed crimes. I mean, let's be very honest here, right? The Rhodesians committed worse crimes. The guerrillas committed crimes too. We come to independence. Then there was an amnesty in 1980. Okay, we forget, everything is fine, let's move on. 1980, 81, Gukurahundi starts. 82. For 5, 6, 7 years, people are being killed. And then 1988, the amnesty ordinance, okay, it's fine, we forgive everybody, we move on. 2000, when the MDC was formed, remember the atrocities? That's when they burnt that guy in the truck, Tswangirai's driver. That's when they killed Martin Olds. That's when they killed Stevens. The farmers got the worst of it, right? But the MDC people also got the worst of it. But it was the same modus operandi. Same killing without any accountability. In broad daylight. They were not killing at night, huh? Remember, Gukurahundi killed during the day, killed during the night. Same thing, because you know you're going to get away with it. You know that you've been licensed literally to kill. You work for the killers, and the killers will protect you. What happened after 2000? Those 2 CIOs were convicted. What did Mugabe do? He pardoned them. Do you remember? The ones who killed Talent and what's his name? West Settlement Chikwinya ran away. I forget the second. The ones that were burnt in the car. Mugabe pardoned them. They said, no, go free, you are free. Which is the worst slap in the wrist for the victims. But even before that, 1990, in case people's memories are not are no longer as clear. So the history of atrocity in our country. 3 years after the signature of the Unity Accord, Joshua Nkomo is now vice president. Right? 3 years. Tekere says, no, I'm forming my own party. I'm done with you. They kick him out. They shoot Kombai in broad daylight. I was at the trial of these 2 CIO operatives that were guarding Muzenda, who was the vice president at the time, the other vice president. They shot Kombai in broad daylight and left him for dead. This guy who later on became the CIO director. What was his name? Mashingaidze. They shot the guy right there. What did Mugabe do? They were convicted, by the way, those people who shot Kombai. I was at the trial. I was in court. It was 1991, I think. I was still a student. As soon as they were convicted, Mugabe pardoned them. And what signal are you giving? You are saying it is okay, right? It's okay to kill people. As long as we have sent you, as long as you are doing it on behalf of us, as long as you are doing it on behalf of ZANU-PF, you can go and kill people. It's okay. There will be no consequences whatsoever. You may be tried, you may be arrested, you may be convicted, but it's still okay. Don't worry. When it comes to the end, we will make sure you don't pay any consequence for your actions. I mean, can you imagine living in a country like this? It started off, I said, Gukurahundi. 1990, Zoom. 2000, the farmers. What did Mugabe do after they killed Stevens in Buhera? What did he do after they killed Martin Olds? He said, our hearts are full of anger. You are working with our enemy. You are white. I mean, what the hell nonsense is that? When you start opening a door to killing somebody because of a particular trait of their identity. So you are white, I can kill you. So next time we're just in Ndebele, there's one Shona, you are Shona, we can kill you. Next time we're just men and there's one woman, you are a woman, we can kill you. How do you open the door to discrimination? How are you going to close it? Because once you open it, it's a door, right? You've walked into it. You start seeing difference as a defining feature, and you start instrumentalizing violence for one identity to dominate another, which is exactly what happened with Gukurahundi. So there we go. 1990, 2000, 2002, remember we had 2 elections, one after the other. Remember we had parliamentary elections in 1990, which MDC won, by the way. Don't let anyone tell you anything. The MDC won those elections. They got bogged in court for years. Remember those cases. Remember how the balance in the court and Mugabe ended up using the 30 MPs to... He used the 30 MPs to get a majority in parliament. But he had lost that election. ZANU had lost. So we come to 2008. You remember what happened in 2008? You all remember. Nobody forgets Mavotera Papi. Operation Mavotera Papi. A bloodbath. A complete bloodbath. For one reason and one reason alone. You are opposition. It's no longer Gukurahundi, huh? Gukurahundi was you Ndebele. The farms was you are white. You are a farmer. Mavotera Papi, you are now in MDC. But it's the same script. Same violence. Same impunity. Same instrumentalization of power. So that you retain power. Instrumentalization of violence, so you retain power. 2008. Oh, it didn't stop there. And it hasn't stopped. 2017, there was less blood, but you still have force. The use of force to retain and attain political power. The coup. There was no way that Mugabe would have been removed because Mugabe was an elected president. We had all complained about how he was cheating, but he was... So to remove him, you needed the army, force, violence, or the threat of violence, right? It doesn't even have to be violence per se. And then, of course, 2017. We need to see this in the context of a culture of violence where a party in power has instrumentalized the use of violence against defenseless citizens. Of course, we talk about it as just incidents, attacks, but these are actually crimes. And when you read my paper, which is coming out soon, you will see how Gukurahundi, for example, were international crimes. The crimes of Gukurahundi were international crimes. What has never been done? People talk about people being burnt in hearts, women being raped, people being killed, people disappearing. But as a lawyer, because working with Shari when I was a little boy, I was always concerned about categorizing what was Gukurahundi in terms of international law. What was it? Were these crimes against humanity? Were these war crimes? Was this genocide? There's a lot of debate. You say it was genocide. No, it wasn't genocide. It's not that all Shonas came to kill Ndebeles. Do you even understand what genocide is? You don't need every Shona to go and kill every Ndebele for it to be genocide. 5 people can commit a genocide. and 5 of them can be Ndebeles. They can commit a genocide against Ndebeles. So no. How was it genocide when Nkala was there? Do you even understand what genocide is? Before you start telling me that because Nkala was part of it, it was not genocide. You can kill your own people. It's possible. So I tried to understand. And I would have said, I said to Zenzele, maybe another time I'll talk about it. I almost said, Zenzele, can I also give a lecture on the international crimes of Gukurahundi? Those were international crimes. There is no question about it. There were crimes against humanity, which is, I'll give you a definition, very simple one, so that you will hear it and you'll understand that, oh my God, this Gukurahundi were crimes against humanity. Crimes against humanity are a widespread and systematic attack against a civilian population. Does it relate? Was it widespread? Systematic? An attack? Civilians? That's it. You go to the International Criminal Court, that's how they define crimes against humanity. That's how the International Court for the Tribunal for Yugoslavia defined crimes against humanity. That's how the International Criminal Court in Rwanda defined crimes against humanity. That is how crimes against humanity were defined in the Special Court in Sierra Leone. I had the privilege of working in the tribunal in East Timor. That's how we define crimes against humanity. Gukurahundi was a genocide. Do you want to know what the definition of genocide is in the simplest of terms? It is the total or partial destruction of a group of people by virtue of their identity. And the identities are listed. The only one that is accepted is politics, a political identity. The total or partial destruction of a group of persons on account of their identity. Of course, then there are listed crimes there. For crimes against humanity, you've got murder, mass murder, rape, forcible deportation of a population. You are hearing all these things, right? Can you remember? Mass rape. Do you remember the girls, 60 girls at Korodziba? Little girls, kids. 60 little girls were raped at Korodziba at the school. The oldest, no older than 16 years old. And then you're saying these are not crimes against humanity? And then the boys were forced to rape the girls as well. For pleasure now, right? Let's not even talk about the mass burnings, the mass beatings. Torture is also one of the elements of crimes against humanity. But let me go back to genocide. So, you say it was a genocide. No, it wasn't a genocide. There was no attempt. There was no attempt to kill Ndebeles. Come on. Who are you fooling? Even Mugabe himself admitted it was a genocide. He said, when he was asked, remember at State House, they said, so Mugabe, what do you have to say about Gukurahundi? He said, well, you know the Ndebele party. For goodness sake. Ndebele party? When was ZAPU ever in Ndebele party? ZAPU had Nziramasanga, Nyandoro, Msikawanu. ZAPU was the most undebele party you can ever see. And that was the problem for many of the people who were having with Nkomo. That what's wrong with you? But it was convenient for Mugabe to say it was Ndebele party. But that then tells you what Mugabe's thinking and intention was. Go and kill these Ndebeles because in his mind, these Ndebeles support ZAPU. So you cut off the ZAPU support system. But you are really targeting Ndebeles, right? He didn't even hide it. Of course, we all know in our villages that they came, they made us sing songs in Shona. We know that if you said, my way, you were spared. To say, then you were spared. We know that. We know that they would separate people in buses. They would look at their IDs, and if you were not Ndebele, you would be spared. We know that. So don't tell us it was not a genocide. And who are you to tell us anyway? We know it was a genocide, right? War crimes. War crimes are one of the international crimes. War crimes are crimes that are committed in violation of the laws of war. Because a war, you must follow the rules. Wars are legal, unfortunately, but you must fight wars in a proper way. And basically, the laws of war say they have one fundamental prohibition, the Geneva Conventions. There's 4 of them. The most important common article to all the 4 Geneva Conventions is one that prohibits attacking civilians in the course of war. You can attack other combatants. That's a war, right? But you cannot attack civilians. Civilians must be protected. And if you kill, if you torture, if you beat, if you rape, if you forcibly deport, if you destroy property belonging to civilians, you commit a war crime. There are many debates where the 2 parties to the conflict were dissidents, combatants, as envisaged by the Geneva Conventions. You will see it all in the paper that I've written. I have drawn a conclusion that there was a conflict in Matabeleland. Some people will say, one of the top scholars I kept talking to her, she was a little bit unhappy because she felt, say, there's a false equivalence here. That the dissidents were so organized, and she'll give a lecture later in the week, Joss. And she's the expert on this. But for war crimes, there is no requirement for equivalence. There's no requirement for symmetry, right? You can have a small little gang of rebels, and then the army commits excesses and they commit war crimes. Even the rebels themselves commit war crimes. You saw that in Sierra Leone, you see that in Mali, you see that in Mozambique right here. So you cannot say in Mozambique there's no conflict, just because, or here in Zimbabwe there was no conflict because the dissidents were disorganized. I mean, I tried to analyze this as I was looking at it, that, well, to what extent were they organized? I mean, there's things that you will see, and I'm sure Jocelyn will also give it in the lecture. They were, of course, how they became active participants in the conflict is another story. What drove them out there into the bush is a completely different story, but it needs to be told, right? But the point is, there were people out there in the bush that were armed, that had a certain objective. They may not have been organized in the way that the Zimbabwe National Army was. They may not have been organized in the same way that the 5th Brigade was. But if you analyze it from a legal perspective, you may conclude that there was a conflict. Of course, unfortunately, the Gukurahundi made no effort at all to combat the dissidents. They didn't want, they're not interested in the dissidents. Because their mission, Mugabe had told them, go to the people and plow and reconstruct. Don't worry about the dissidents. That's why you feed the dissidents, you are a dissident. How do you not feed a dissident if a dissident comes armed and says, I'm hungry? How? Is that not what happened during the war? When the guerrillas arrived and said, we are hungry, do you say, no, I'm a sochate, I mean, come on. So for me, there is no question that the crimes of the Gukurahundi were international crimes. And therefore, as international crimes, they must have the same consequences that all international crimes have, which means there must be accountability for them. There is an obligation for accountability. The next question is how? How do you ensure accountability for international crimes? Some people have said ICC and all this. It's not possible to take Gukurahundi crimes to the ICC. It's not possible for many reasons, which I also outline in my paper. But that's not the only way of ensuring accountability. And that's not the only way of ensuring accountability for any crimes that a society suffers. But that there were crimes means there must be justice for the crimes. Because if there's a crime committed, there has to be justice for it. I was very excited, even though I was very skeptical, and I'm closing just now. I was very skeptical, but I felt that the current president went further than the former president. I'll be very honest with you. I was very skeptical when he said, well, we are going to deal with Gukurahundi. I said, well, knowing his role, but also, you know, it's never too late, right, for you to see Jesus. It's never too late. People see Jesus at any point, sometimes a long time before they die, sometimes just before. So I was also very excited. I said, okay, who better to deal with Gukurahundi than President Mnangagwa? Who better? He's the best person to deal with Gukurahundi. And we're going to continue to push and hold him accountable to deal with Gukurahundi. If he can use the office of the president that he holds to fix Gukurahundi, he must, but not on his terms. No. It cannot be on his terms. He is conflicted. For goodness sake, he must accept and understand this. You cannot be a judge in your own case. You cannot choose a judge in your own case, a case that affects you. You can facilitate justice and say, okay, I think it's important that we are all judged. Okay, so what do you have to say? But respect the victims for goodness sake. Don't rub salt into the wound and try to manage a process so that it is most favorable to you, both the process and the outcome. It will not be favorable. It cannot be favorable. The people are already dead. And we know the numbers. And you were implicated. But you can still go down in history as the man who left the country with a brighter forward path. It's possible. Even me, having worked as an international criminal lawyer, I ask myself, who has the appetite for trials now? People just want to know, where is my son, huh? You took my son, where is he? That's all they want. Some people just want to know, where did you put my child? Just give me even his bones, and I'll be fine. That's all some people want, for goodness sake. Some people want to be able to talk about their children. Some people want the world to know that they had a child. This was my child. And he was taken. And I never saw him again. Surely you cannot stop people having that. Even God doesn't do that. You are not God, for goodness sake. And I say always, some of us, for our loud mouth, we have lost our farms. We'll lose more, but it's okay. I always say my father was only 4 years older than me when he died. So I only have 4 more years to beat his record. But you will not keep us quiet. Never. I would rather die on my knees, die on my feet, than live on my knees. I will never keep quiet about Gukurahundi. Who's going to talk for those people who disappeared? Who's going to talk for them? Ngoba siyasaba ukuthi sizanyamalala. Okungazi kufa yikuyini, ukunyamalala kuyamangalisa. Sokunyamalala abantu abangama-1000 wena kumangalisani ukunganyamalala wena. You are just one more over the 1,000. And mind you, you only die once. You cannot die twice, you know that, right? So for me, I continue and I use this opportunity to say we should all work towards resolving Gukurahundi. We should support the government in its quest to resolve Gukurahundi. We should help the government, tell the government how we think Gukurahundi should be resolved. We must not keep quiet, because there will be no resolution. If you think about it, many of our leaders are in their 80s, some 70s. In 10, 15 years, they'll be gone. But what legacy have they left? A divided society, completely divided on ethnic grounds. Yet Zimbabwe was never that. That's why I kept telling you, ZAPU had in the top 6, 5 of the top 6 were Shona leaders. Now we're being told that Matebele was from Ndebeles. The most prolific business people, Nyashanu, you remember them? They spoke Ndebele, they assimilated, there was no problem. Now we're being told that Ndebeles are tribalistic. They're ethnic. I've been told I'm a super tribalist when I talk about Gukurahundi. And I say, then it's okay. I love being a super tribalist. If talking about Gukurahundi makes me a super tribalist, then it's fine. But for me, Gukurahundi is a matter of justice. We all must work towards it. And it's a national issue. It's not a Matebeleland issue. Because of Gukurahundi, we had Mrambatswina. Because of Gukurahundi, we had Operation Mavotera Papi. Because of Gukurahundi, we had Itai Zamara. Because of Gukurahundi, we had Paul Chizuze. Because of Gukurahundi, we had August 6. Because of Gukurahundi, we had July 31. Because of Gukurahundi, we had Tawanda Mcheiwa. Because of Gukurahundi, we had Joanna Mamombe. Because of Gukurahundi, we will continue to have people commit crimes with the full assurance that they can get away with it. That cannot be a society I want to live in. And if the cost will be me or my life, I trust that someone will also get up and continue to fight for the society we want. Because we can have it. We can have it. Some of us are too old. I mean, I'm 50 years old. I have no interest in politics. They say, oh, he wants to be a politician. What can I do with politics? I've been working for 20 years globally. I'm not going to go into politics. I have no interest in it. I want the 40, 30-year-olds to get into politics. If I had a chance when I was 30, 40, I would have come in. But I have no interest in politics. But I worry about the society that even us at 50 years old are leaving our children. Our fathers who are now 70, 80, who are ruling the country, they've literally kept the whole country in suspended motion. We can't move. So thank you so much for taking time to listen to me. I look forward to watching the documentary on the Slovela 12. They're 12, right? Not 11. They were 12 or 11. And ultimately, the most painful crime of all the crimes against humanity that I mentioned is the crime of enforced disappearance. You might think that it's worse to see your father shot in front of you. I can tell you it's worse for you not to know what happened to your father. At least if your father was shot in front of you, you know what happened to them, you then bury them, right? The worst crime you can ever commit, one of the worst, is enforced disappearance. Because that crime, it's like a wound that just festers. Because you know, every single day the door opens, you think the person will walk in. Do you know that? You know they won't, but you think they will. You hope they will. There's about 10 rights that are violated when you disappear a person. 10 in one act of disappearing umuntu. There's depriving of their liberty. There's torture. There's a right to life, right to dignity, right to against protection of the law. Do you understand? Sesiku 5, I can name the others. There are so many rights just in one crime of disappearing umuntu. Because you remove them from the protection of the law. Usumfake lapho mfake khona. And you can do whatever you want. And you can be sure all those people who disappeared are dead. Siyakwazi sebafa ngoba ngabafanga ngabaphenduka ngithi. Kodwa at least sitshele ukuthi bangaphi. Even ungasitshelanga ngoba usakhumbula ukuthi hayi ngambulala. Sibe kwazi ukuthi hayi sesizwile wambulala. Kodwa wathini amazwi akhe okucina. That gives comfort even to families. You know that. Utheni, hayi uthe hayi lisale likhangela abantu abami. Hayi kuhle. You can then bury. You can even go to the place where they say they killed him. You can do a ritual there because that's where the spirit left. His spirit left earth. So I look forward. I've gone over my time. I look forward to the film. And thank you so much for inviting me, Zenzele and colleagues. And thank you for listening to me. We should resolve Gukurahundi, and we should keep encouraging the leadership in the country to resolve Gukurahundi. Not on their terms, though. On our terms as the victims of Gukurahundi. Thank you.
Please give our guest of honor another round of applause. That was Mr. Siposami Malunga. For those of the viewers who are joining us online, we have just had our speech from our guest of honor. And at this point in time, I'd like to ask Mr. Zenzele Ndebele to please come back for a few remarks before we go into the live stream of the documentary. Mr. Ndebele, over to you. Before.
So this is not a speech, but we just felt that it was going to be, or it is very necessary to acknowledge the families of the victims that are with us today. And we would like to kindly ask them if they are comfortable to stand up so that abantu bebabone, and we thank them by clapping hands. So we have always read the story of the Slovela men who disappeared, and this year we went there, we met the families, and we believe the story has never been told or it has been written about, but it was a different experience when we heard from the widows, from the brothers, from the sisters. And it is a great honor to have the people here so that we really feel it's so powerful because it's different. But this is where it gets real because you know the families are there. So I won't waste your time because I know you're waiting for the documentary.
So the documentary title is One Night in 1985, and whenever I think we are ready. I think I'll move this out the way. Permission to move this out the way? Okay.
Zimbabwean flag rises as the 50th independent nation of Africa is born.
Will take your part in the rebuilding of Zimbabwe. When I say everyone, I mean everybody, including those people against
We have got, all of us.
We cannot build Zimbabwe if we do not, now all of us, join in as one nation without any distinction of color or creed.
After 2 decades of armed struggle, Robert Mugabe won Zimbabwe's first ever multiracial election with 57 seats against his chief rival Joshua Nkomo of ZAPU, who garnered 20 seats. The then Prime Minister Robert Mugabe delivered his great victory speech on March 4, 1980, declaring that this was now the time to beat swords into plowshares and to attend to the problems of developing the economy and society. He urged everyone, whether black or white, to join him in the new pledge to forget the grim past and forgive each other, to join hands in new amenity as Zimbabweans, to trample upon racism and regionalism, and work hard to reconstruct and rehabilitate society to reinvigorate the economy. The tone of his speech promised a free and equal new Zimbabwe, regardless of race and ethnicity, but it was not to be. In less than a year after delivering his reconciliatory speech, Mugabe was singing a different tune. He was threatening his opponents with violence. Speaking in Parliament in February 1981, Mugabe said he would use vicious methods if the situation warranted. He said that if other people were planning coups and revolts, for such they were well prepared. He said that if it was to be an eye for an eye, they would remove 2 for 1 eye. In 1983, the Zimbabwean government deployed the 5th Brigade on the pretext of fighting dissidents. Using a Rhodesian tactic of deploying pseudo-gangs, army units went to villages posing as dissidents, committing abuses which were later blamed on insurgents. Amnesty International documented 2 examples of this tactic in April 1985. Armed attackers, later officially described as dissidents, killed 7 people in a bar at Mahamba Business Center in Inyati in Matabeleland North. Earlier the same day, the paramilitary police support unit had set up camp only 200 meters from the bar, with armed members of the unit drinking there just before the attack. A single warning shot signaled the beginning of the attack, and the support unit members left immediately. Neither they or the regular Zimbabwe Republic Police intervened until the attackers had left. The owner of the bar was Micah Bebe, a member of the Central Committee of ZAPU. His son was among those killed.
These guys came, 5 of them. I'm a support unit. Right. Bahamba a corner adjacent to us. Tina sihleli lapha, there was a ndiyabona amabhentshi zawo emalodji lana kuyabe kuli bench like sihlezi. So then my husband was facing that side. Sahlala khona phana. Baqalisa ukuxoxaxoxa bathatha this girl. Laye wagcina esiba yi-first victim to be shot. Mina ngathi, but these guys bakhuluma ngathi laba, but no, just ignore them. Baku business ya. And then 3 guys stood up. Labana babe ku support uniform. What a statement in Shona. Chamboenda unosota zwinu zwangu. Unfortunately, they thought no one knows Shona. Mina, I know Shona very well in Afundeni High School with Shona, so I'm very invested in Shona in Kalang. We carried on sikoqa thina sesimelelene amankazana ngale ku business ukuthi bonke bakheche out kubaba, then sigade imota kubaba sibuye lapha ngikhaya. Then lapha e restaurant kwakuvalwa around 10:30. So I think it was around 10:10 or so, because sathi sokusele the last late ukuthi ayikheche uTrafin wathi ngihambise imganu leyi kitchen. Before she waphambana laye, actually wabe phambana lo bhudilwana o lighting complexion othe ndichambo sota zwenu zwangu. He had changed iregalia yakhe, sechange uniform, esefake ama t-shirt abo lana ngani ay green, lama turkeys abo angani ay green, lama navy tracksuits abo la. Straight he came to us. Sihlezi umnawa ke lo kamkam usehambise ama plates ekitchen. Those guys came straight to us. Bafike bathi abangu 2 belokhe belaphana befully armed. Lwana munye wayemubi sobhudwa ngkhona wafika wamalaphana. Lwana wabuya kithi, harshly asking us threatening questions. Lingobani lina la? Lingobani? Saqala sathi sonke 2. Hayi singabantwana bala. Bathi ningamatsiyayo lina, ningamadissident lina. Tina no, wathi lo ngumngami, mina I'm a teacher. I'm a civil servant ngiyafundisa. The first bullet yachaya in between us singu 2. Ngaguqa so. The second one, what? Iwe urisiyayo uresident iwe wathi hayi next shot wamshuta lapha on the left. Now the shooting carried on outside. And this one, he even attempted to rape me. You know, I was resisting. Vele ngasakwazi ukuthi ngenzani. Now, umkami wathi ngikhulula ibhanti. Ngamkhulula ibhanti. You know, I think ukuthi uyalala, yet he was giving the last breath. And then giving the last breath, lana, the blood oozed. I was putting on a black and white thing, the stockings and things like that. That was the last breath. The shooting is still going on there. Khonapho sengiphethe ingwane yakhe lebhanti lakhe. Izicathulo ngizithiphile ama-farmer shoes ngabeka lapha. I'm kneeling. After some time, there was a voice. Bakasara Mukai. Ngasukuma so ngathalaza. Hathi lapha ngicabanga nga. Sensiya gijimela e-office kaba. Gijima company office I'm jumping. I'm not saying ukuthi I'm jumping phakathi kwegazi lokuchopha. Those guys ababevela ku ships bezodeliver yana ude. Umna wakhe lo uthe ezama ukungena ku cupboard lapha. Bamshuta wasesithi then bamshuta ikhaya. Khona phase ukuphuma sokuphithizela I ran to the office ngafika ngawe eminyango and this knee of mine up to today is not working well. Ngafika ngachaya ngedolo lapha. Ngafica ubaba kuyini? Ngathi baba uStanislaus is no more. Ubaba wachana lezi was the first person ubaba owamfonelayo wafonela uSidi, the late Sidi Malo. What is Sidi? They've got me today. What are you safe? What you know? God will provide. Sahlala ke kwampana sahlala nobaba babuya abe police. Ingathi khonapho abe police bafika bathi hambe thatha izidumbule zami. Ubaba zalo wami mayikhama hamba bebe. Took me on the side. Sahamba wathwala umntana wakhe sifile lapha. Wamfaka la. He was wearing a cream suit, I still remember. Yasala anto emfakela so yasala ile nkalakatha ye-sport segazi. Then the other guy babe ngu2 khona phana. Bababeka laphana kwasokuthiwa sokumele li-truck ize bathatha ibahambise esibhedlela. Kwathiwa sibalinde outside yagodola. Sokusesabeka now sokunuka impi, smelling blood everywhere. Impilo isincane sahlala sabalinda. Then this other guy olokhe egqoka uniform yabo wabuya kini wafika wathi iwe mkadzwedi izindindi diphe force gare room wakho mkadzwedi izindindi. Wathatha it was a pack of Everest 20 support unit lana on the uniform. Wathatha we waited there. Sahlala bahambisa labana bakuthiwa basebelimele kakhulu esibhedlela. Bathe bephenduka batshela ubaba zalo ukuthi no, that big imoto ikona, it was your daughter. She was passing on by then. Remember, sikhangele lo lapho sefile, sizwa kuthwalana sefile. Istage esasesiyiso ubaba zala lami. Umama ngikhaya kazi lutho, lo kazi lutho kwenzakala ngale. He is detained e camp ngecala esingalaziyo ukuthi uhambelani labantu abangazakaliyo yedwa in Zimbabwe. Now from then kwathiwa sesinida i-escort sibuye ngikhaya. Ubaba wathi no, ngizahamba lo malikazi nami imoto ngilayo. Bathi no, officer in charge. What you know, you can't. Your situation osukiyo. Then ubaba wagcine give in basithwala ngemoto. It was 3 a.m. Safika egate laphana ngikhaya. Sayehla khona phana. Sama so basidampa basichiya engasingenza ngegate. Sama kanti the time thina siyangena Umga Trifin was a policeman, was a constable khona phana police station. Njengomkhwenyana yakwazi ukuthi kudala kwauhamba njani, wauhamba lawe uyecathani eqhibeni le girlfriend yakho. Ubuyile wazacatha ngikhaya thinking ukuthi uTrifin is coming home. Uyasiza lo baba siyangena ku corridor baba. Athi kimi la umama sizamtshela njani. Mina lami ngithi baba ngazi. Saqhubana saye safika ebedroom yabadala. Sifike ebedroom yabadala. Umama ubona mina uthi ngulo osefile driving. Uthi hayi nginabangani. Bakuthi hlala phansi. Umama waphonga kuba leleni she just got hysterical. Engakezwe ukuthi kwenzakalani. Bathi abantu uStanislas lo driving sebefile. You know, Tomdala wa channel ezivalo dani.
In November 1985, unidentified attackers shot dead Luke Khumalo, a headmaster at Tewane School in Plumtree, and his wife Jean. The government, as usual at the time, described those responsible as dissidents. Yet the attackers wore combat uniforms, some of which were identified by eyewitnesses as being those of the People's Militia. The attackers stayed at the school for over 2 hours, and the soldiers who had an army camp 3 kilometers away failed to intervene. Like Micah Bebe, Luke Khumalo was a supporter of ZAPU, the party which the authorities identified with the dissidents. There were 4 categories of dissidents. First, there were those who claimed to be loyal to ZAPU. These numbered less than 200 at their peak, and they had no political leadership. There is no evidence to date that proves that ZAPU or ZIPRA leadership supported this group of renegades. Most of them had deserted the army, citing persecution by the ZANU government. The pre-independence apartheid government in South Africa trained and armed the second group, Super ZAPU. This group aimed to destabilize Matabeleland to discourage the ANC's Mkhonto weSizwe from setting up bases there. Super ZAPU dissidents went out of control and began killing commercial farmers and villagers accused of being sellouts. There is enough evidence pointing to the fact that the government was aware of the presence of Super ZAPU dissidents. Yet, they still accused ZAPU of deploying them. Then there were pseudo-dissidents, composed of armed gangs deployed by the state. These gangs acted like dissidents and were used to eliminate internal enemies and justify the deployment of the 5th Brigade. Lastly, there were armed criminal gangs who took advantage of the situation and went around robbing businesses. True to his word, Mugabe used vicious methods to deal with ZAPU and its supporters, and one of these methods was that of disappearances. Thousands of people disappeared in Matabeleland and the Midlands during the Gukurahundi genocide. Cases of people disappearing became more prevalent in 1983 and increased in 1985. This was an election year and many ZAPU supporters were detained and some killed. There were people abducted overnight, never to be seen again to this day. One case that stands out is that of 11 Slobela men taken from their homes on the night of January 30, 1985. 36 years later, their families are still wondering what happened to them, where they are buried, and who was responsible. Twice, these families put up a memorial plaque for their relatives, and on both occasions, suspected state operatives removed them. The families of those who disappeared are still looking for answers as to what happened to their relatives, and they live with the hope that one day they will find justice and closure.
Thuma abantu labo bezesitshela ukuthi bangaphi laba abantu. Ungasitshela ukuthi bangaphi laba abantu siyephosela ilitshe sesithi is over. They are no more. Namhlanje we can't say they are no more because they are somewhere. Lapho esingazi khona. Bakhona kwenye indawo esingayaziyo. Weza kusemlindini bafakwa kulowo mlindi asiwazi. Sicela ukwazi. Isilobela sifuna ukwazi ngabantwana baso. Isilobela sifuna ukwazi ngabazali baso lapha bakhona.
Ubaba wahamba ngo-84 nxa ngaphambanisa. Ngihambe ngo-84 kwakungoLwesithathu ebusuku. Inyanga ngibona ngeJanuary so sakwazi. So kwafika abantu. Kwakuyisikhathi sezulu laphana kunomnyama kodwa mhlalokho lalingani izulu umnyama yiwakhona. Bafika ebusuku sesilele. Bafika baqoqoda. Bathi kubaba uvuka sifuna ukubuza. Ende ngizwa ubuhlungu ngoba ukwenza kwakhona so kuyimpi lokho. Wavuka wathatha ibhurugwe eliyirenkeza ayesenga ngalo njengokuthi kwakuyisikhathi sodaka laphana. So wayesithi nxa yesengathatha ibhurugwe elidabukile agqoke ngisale ngifaka amanzi ukuthi sebuya ngale ageze angene empahleni eziklini. So ubaba wethula ibhurugwe lelana njengomuntu ome emnyango ongaseyayo indawo wagqoka. Ngizwa ubuhlungu bakithi. Wahamba enqume noyembe novesi nosicathulo nosokisi. Wayegqoke khonokho okuzingada khonokho kwebhurugwe. Wangithiya nginomntwana onyenyanga ezimbili. Umntwana walibele mhlanokho yesehamba. Kwakusithi nesikhathi kungafika isikhathi sokuthi uyise bamthatha ngasiphi isikhathi ngizalala mile. Ngimile so ngacaka ngaba njengalokho. Lizathi nxa ilanga liphuma yena belala ngizatshona ngigiqa. So eseyalibele umntwana lengalisela lecengo. Kanti ngingasela muntu oyindoda oza ngiselela mbani ukuthi umntwana lo azuze ukudla. So uthe esephuma sebehamba laye. Ibala litshoyo wathi ibizo lakho nguParis umntwana mina. Walele Venice lesosikhathi. Wathi chicha Paris. Usezwilisa ukuthi umntwana la ngonjani. Mosehamba. Wathi chicha Paris. Uthe umntwana lwana nxa echicha ukuthi afice uyise. Ngalokho ngini phandle ngibelethe khonokho ukutwana okulusane okwe2 months. Bathi khwemelele. Uyise wahamba yedwa.
Bathi umntwana kaphendula.
Lesinye isikwadi. Umntwana la uhamba lesinye isikwadi. Bahamba lawo. Ngalala ngihlezi. Emnyameni ngesaba ukulayitha. Ngalala ngiquthile. Kuthe nxa sokusithi sokukhanya ukuthi nasane into lapha. Umntwana uyakhala, mama lingaphi ngathi buya mntana ngilapha. Sokukusisa. Sokungolesine lapha. Ngathi buya mntana ngila wabuya. Wathi wathi mama, wathi baba kawabuya, wathi wakhala. Wakhala. Nanamuhla nanxa kodwa wathi siwasweleka kasekho. Ngangisitha ngaze athabe njani ngizama ukumcupha ukuthi engxenye angangitshela ukuthi kade wabonani. Uzwatshona lapha engafuni ukuthi angitshele ukuthi ngoyise wabonani.
So azange litshela ukuthi kuhamba njani.
Hayi uzwatshona phansi kazange athande ngizama ukungani ngizama ukuthi mhlane ethabe kakhulu nami ngingene kuhle ukuthi nxa ngangitshela uzowangena phansi engazange angitshele ukuthi wabonani. Kodwa ukukhala kwakhe kuzwisa ukuthi sebuyile. Watshengisa ukuthi kunolutho alubonileyo. So ngenxa ukuthi ngunina wesaba ukuthi umama ngamtshela uzadabuka sesale nobani. Ngoba umntwana wanjiya kunomntwana olele Venice ehamba. So umntwana lo we2 months esalibele khonapho isehamba. Kaza enjibele namkalazi uyise kamazi into ezimbili.
Lokho engidabukile ngendlela yahamba ngayo utata. Ngoba mina utata umuntu wayesigcinile. Samgcina ngelanga ethathu asiphindanga sambona. Sakhula sihlupheka silomama. kwaze kwafika isikhathi sonke sona sazisenda saba abafazi abadala kuze kube khathesi umuzi wangikhaya ungamanxuwa ngendlela utata athatha ngayo. So ngiyabonga ngesikhumbuzo sonesi. Nxa ngikhuluma ukuthi ngehlisa inyembezi ngizwa ubuhlungu ngoba umzali wami each time nxa ngibuya lapha ngiyabe expect ukuthi engxenyeni zambona ngikhulume laye, but kimi kubuhlungu, ngidabukile, angikwanisi ukukhuluma. Kunje utata wayesebenza engu-headmaster but akula benefit esayitholayo, akula lutho lwakhe esaluzuzayo.
Befika abantu labana bafika balahleka indlu, angithi bakokoda ubaba, angithi lapho esasikhona thina, yikho lapho esavuka khona thina. Baharasa ubaba bamthatha bamisa eceleni komnyango wendlu yakhe, khona lapho esasikhona. Bakhipha umbhobho bamkhombelisa bathi uwe. Sebembuze ukuthi ubaba ulala nga, wakhombela ukuthi hayi lapha next indlu eseceleni. Bangena bamarasa ugogo esala, ugogo echinga esithi lami mbulalani, kodwa ukhulu bamthatha bahamba laye. Angithi indlela abaphuma ngayo bavela baphuma bangena ngendlela esivele siyisebenza komakhelwane, bayangena komakhelwane. Angithi maseneso sikhathi kwathi ke njengoba kwangolesithathu kanti inkomo zalapha kithi tipha ngolesine. I think yiyo phose into yasinika i-direction yokuthi okhulu bangabe baphuma baya ngaphi. Kungaba isizathu sokuthi namhlanje litshele lize sayithwe la kwisizathu bani. Kwafumaneka ukuthi ekseni abantu nxa besiza lezi nkomo edipha ekseni. Kanti kwangolesithathu inkomo zakithi tipha ngolesine. Nxa abantu besiza le nkomo ekseni, nanzi inkomo zithi hu ziyabongolela zenzani, zibona igazi. Angithi nxa besondela abadala khona bafika ukuthi izinyawo izinjambo zivele zikhanya ngaleso isikhathi lezi njambo zamasotsha. Angithi and abantu bona labo benza into babegqoke camouflage, into engiyazi babegqoke impahla zesotsha. Angithi babona ke ukuthi yikho badiscover khona ukuthi abadala bangabe baphelela la or balinyazela lapha kakhulu, but iside baphuma ngendlela yokuthi basukela edipha ngoba izimota ezazizwakele ngobusuku bona lobo ntambama zazizwakele ngesayidini ledipha zafika zathulisa khona bazaphelela khona. Yikho kusiya kusa kwavuka sokunomkhosi esigabeni abadala sebehambile.
Njengomzukulu yakhula ukhule ngasekho, kuba njani?
Kakhulu ngizakhuluma ngijulisile ngoba nginje njengesigabeni sakithi esilobela la, ngiya-understand ukuthi ku-Midlands province, ku-Midlands simixile, sihlanganele indimi zabantu zihlangene. Angithi so into eyenzakalayo esigabeni la yavele yantshengisa mina ukuthi kwaba lobandlululo, because akula ndawo lapho bafika bathatha khona olunye ulimi ngaphandle kwabantu besindebeleni kuphela. 1 2 ngiyakholwa ukuthi sonke siyakwazi ukuthi singabantu abamnyama. Nomuntu nongaze abe ngumfundisi noma engaze abe ngupresident enjana, ulesikhathi sokuthi kungafika kumkhathazileyo angene lapha angene khona bamtshela ukuthi ukhulu wakho kunje, ukhulu wakho kunje. Umuntu akubuza ukhulu wakho nga, yabona. So yikho okusenza size sifike esigabeni sokuthi noma kunzima kunjalo namhlanje kuyesabeka, we are not even safe, ikakhulu njengoba beplantwe lento la ayisekho. Kuyatshengisa ukuthi those people abantu laba abayizigangi bakhona, kodwa ngendlela yokuthi ngabazali bethu abayi-part and parcel yemimoya yakithi yokuthi thina siphile. Akula ndlela esingayenza. Ngabe lokuthatha futhi I think bazazithathela. Nxa umlimi wasidalela bona, but iqiniso khangela ubona ngelokuthi alubana uhulumende engavuma evumile asincede kuphela ngokusazisa lapho abakhona khathesi. Umuntu ngiyazi ukuthi umuntu kakula ndlela yokumbhadala, umuntu kabhadaleki. Kumbe bethi ngathi thina after 40 years sithi thina sinike nokhulu bephila. Hayi. But ngendlela zokuthi singabantu abamnyama siyaphila. Ibelief yethu vele ukholo lwethu lukhona ngale ukuthini kulesikhathi sokuthi ke sithini sikhothamiseni kumbe sigogozeni. Kodwa alubana siyakwazi ukuthi kade sibangapho khulu. Inhlupho esilazo namhlanje ubunyama esikubo ngabe kasikho kubo. Sicela nje ukuthi nxa kungenzakala kuze ngamandla kwento lokho asidingi lutho. Sazi lapha bakhona kuphela. I think kuyadingakala ukuthi okunto lokho sibe ndawonye kodwa uhulumende akancede ngale ndaba le. Kakhulu abesigaba bakuthatha phose political wento lokhu nxa nanzelela. Bakuthatha bangathi bakufaka ehlangothini lwani lezombangazwe. Kanti sikhuluma ngento esiyenzakalayo. Into eyenzakalayo ayikho. By then nxa singathi nanzelela okukhulu bethatha bathathele isizathu sokuba ngama-ZAPU members. Angithi whereas namhlanje nxa sithi ZANU-PF sibambanisa iZAPU leZANU. But these people they were ZAPU. Why kanti bafihlelani kanti kuyini? Anti kwenzakala kuyini? Basibafihlela ukuthi akulandlela engenzakala kusoze kutshintshe bangaze babe kathesi and we are not even safe. Njengakithi la khona ukuthi sihlangene lapha we are in Midlands sihlangene noma ekuhlaleni kathesi kulabanye abakuthabelayo khona okwenzakalayo khona ekuhlaleni abanye abakwaziyo futhi nxa ngananzelela right ukudla namhlanje nxa litshe litshontshiwe bayahleka so banatha amatiye bathi abachakhawura kanjani ngizange ngikhuluma njalo sengitshintshulini ukuthi ekuhlaleni kwethu lapha hlezi kodwa hayi towards this thing asikho ndawonye kulabanye abakholisayo labanye abasesililweni.
Bafika abantu ebusuku bafika baqoqoda ngikhangele mina nginokuntwana kuyamunya kuyakhala lingobani bese ngimnyikinya so lingobani ndini akulabiza undini avuka ubaba agqoka kamarabura wakhe nami ngivuke ngigqoke ame emnyango abambelele iminyango so ngaphuma ngaphansi kwakhe la ngaba ime ngiqala ukumangala ngafica abantu abangaka bavela ngabantu bani laba kwakumnyama ngani kunamayezi ngani kunjani ufuna kunizulu kunjani ke kungani kuyakhanya mbijana kuphinde kuciche kube mnyama yena sethule khona
babe bangaki
babedlula noma 10
beqoke
okunye nje wethukile nxa kungani uthe kuyakhanya izikhwama zama-camouflage hayi mdala sifuna ukudla hambe siphekela mama ungaphi omunye ubaba mina hayi laphana kuleli umntwana wesikole umfana lwana besesizwa naye avuka phuma abuye ame lapha ngithi nguye lo umntwana wesikole uyafunda into ebenemhlophe hayi buyela wena umntwana wesikole right mama hambe siphekele isitshwala ebusuku kunje kumbe ngama-1 kumbe kwakuyini naye ngichiye kuwumumbu laphana endlini ngilinike khona yini hayi sifuna isitshwala hambe pheka isitshwala mina ngathi hayi isitshebo kanginaso soze ngipheke isitshwala ebusuku isitshebo kanginaso hayi bathi right mdala asihambe usiphekelezele nje uyaphenduka ngale athi nxa bephuma icentelo lemuzi wami ubaba lathi bantu kathi lingisa ngaphi lingitshisa abantu abami lingisa ngaphi lingitshisa abantu abami hayi mdala uzaphenduka khona sengimi mina khona bamhudu lomunye ubamba ngapho omunye ngapho baphume napa banengi bahambe ngathi iguma lami lingaka lapha nokuya kuleliyani bhakani baze baye batshulela baphuma igedi bakhona benzini kuthe ngayalala-ke sengiquthe ngedwa okunye okungabantwana lokhu nalwana umne wabo wakubutha asihambeni kubo bomncane imjoko sokungikhathazile sokungihluphile ukufundisa abantwana yabona babefika ku-7 8 lesicino 9 ngibafundisa ke ngelukho kungamacansi ngithini ngisaqinile ngilima uzathengisa lokhu lalokhu kodwa kakhulu into ebengiyenza ngibenzeluka amacansi ngiyabonisa sesisilima hayi ngidabukile mntanami ngehlweni ukukhuluma ubaba wayesebenza ekhansilini umuntu olungisa izibhorane ukuthi abantu banathe wayesebenza ekhansilini
ubona ngani wathathelwane?
Lapho ngingakhuluma amanga ngoba nxa ubona umuntu engazange enze lutho ukuthi umbuke wona kobani wathini wakhuluma nobani umuntu wayengakhuluma hayi
Kwakulidibha-ke ngizale inkomo ngapha edibha. Mina ekubuyeni kwami le nkomo la inkunzi yangani iyabongolela lapha-ke. Uthi ngisondele khona ngabona kahle ngathi kulapha abulawele khona. Kanti ngithi nguye ayiyena yedwa. Azawuzwa abantu bethi hayi ayisendla amandla kuphela. Wabalisa-ke bonke laba abathathwayo. Kanzange ngitshele muntu ngomonakalo wegazi lami ngathi hey no into leyani ibuhlungu leya. Into engayibonayo amachudu igazi elalilapho. Lamaphakethe abo-Madison labo Everest kuthi kwakubhenywa la lokuphunyulwa kuvuselelwe kuchayela ngathi. Kwakukubi hayi kwakungakhangeleki labana. Ukubenda namhlanje songathi ngiyakukhumbula ngiphonga ukuthi hey lapha kanti kusho ukuthi babeqonda ukubenza into embi la. Lapha ekudingeni azazi vele sidingi lapha ngifuna ukukhuluma okungasikho. Lemizamo akula. Futhi lento sitshengisa ngani silesikhathi eside yabona kade esi-36 years. Ungani kuyaphuma nje lapho.
So ngesikhathi sakhona lake lazama ukuya emapholiseni labuza.
Ngingakhuluma ukuthi kwavele kusesabeka. Kodwa angazi lokuthi bangena kanjani abeRoma labani RCJC liyana i-Justice and Peace Commission. Iyancedisa kakhulu ukuze uhulumende afike kusimo sokuvuma ukuthi ngabantu bami olalo wayesithi ngabazi kuthi ngama-distance. Kodwa i-Roman Catholic Justice and Peace Commission liyana yanceda kakhulu.
Abantu nje abeza ebusuku isikhathi sobusuku belele qoqoda bafuna yena ubaba bazama ukuthi angiqokanga njani hayi waba ukuthi hayi hayi awuyindawo yabuya khathesi kanjalo nje ukuthi hayi asilawe khatshana kodwa umuntu nje uzoza khathesi ngiqoke phela ngithini hayi uyabuya kwaba yikho lokho njengoba umama vele bayesebenza ngabantu abadala thina singasekho emakhaya kwaba yikho lokho ubaba ephuma la kodwa kwakuzwakala nje phela sozilawo ngoba remember nje inyanga yayikhanyisile so kunye ugogo babephonga ubona ukuthi hawu yikho ukuhamba la ukukamdala since that time sesizwa-ke indawo enjengale yikho kwavuka kusasa kwakhona inkomo kwakulidipha kwavuka utholakale kule gazi eliningi la endaweni yona le sidecide ukuthi kube yindawo ekungafakwa khona ilitshe isikhumbuzo sabadala. Ubaba yena kwakhe ube ngumuntu ongumbalisi ube ngutitshala isikhathi eside of course wasuke ebutitsheni wasebenza kubogwerugweru lapha ko-SSA Rhodesia Oxygen kodwa nje yena ubaba ngokwakhe hayi umuntu wama-jokes nje ama-funnies nje even nabanye abadala nje babemazi leso simo nje ukuthi wayengumuntu nje wokuzixoxela ama-funnies wayengumuntu owayenatha isiphatho nje impilo kade sifundise yona ukuzisebenzela kakhulu ukuthi ivukani majaha lithini into kakhulu mina engikhumbula ngobaba nxa sithi ngiyakhangela emuva ukuthi ngicabange nje ngayo impilo yakhe ukuthi ube ngumuntu nje just umuntu owayehamba ubaba lo sazi lakhe wayesebenzisa kakhulu ukufundisa wayengasebenzisi uswazi kakhulu njalo imuli yakhe inakekela kakhulu kwaze kwafika lesi sikhathi nje sokufa kaningi umuntu ungathiwa akasekho ufanele phela lithini liyombeka ukuze ngiyabona uyananzelela ukuthi ngemva ngesikhathi esiningi nxa ukuthi kusaba uthenwe lapha umuntu kakayibekwa abantu bayabe lokho behlulukele but the moment lihambela yami ukuthi hayi indawo yakho le, uzabona abantu sebeqalisa ukuxoxa-ke, abanye ababe bephatheke kakhulu labo sekukhona kuvuma ukuthi, but thina kakhulu kusiphatha kakhona ukuthi kasazi ukuthi uyaphila uMbungu. Namhla sikwazi ukuthi bunjani. Ngiyakhuluma mina into eyalokhu ingani ngiyamzungeza iyangivakatshela kakhulu.
Mina ngisondle Dube. Ukuthi Dube isibongo sikababa wami. Yena nguSimon Bosha. Ubaba wathatha ngo-85. Kwakusebusuku sezwa abantu beqoqoda endlini yabantwana. Ubaba awangaziwezwa wayelele. Ngaze ngivusa ngithi ngale ndlini yabantwana kulabantu abaqoqodayo. Wasevuka elayitha ephuma esime emnyango. Abantu labana bahle basuka ngale beza khona ngapha lapha esasikhona. Bafika bakhuluma laye. Bathi lapha kuyini okulihluphayo. Wathi hayi akulalutho. Bathi akula bantu abalihluphayo abanjengamapholisa njani. Wathi hayi kulokho nje sasukela khona phana kupheleni kwempi sithathile izazange kube lotho oluhluphayo. Base besithi bona kati imota lezi eduma ngapha ngezani. Wathi hayi angikwazi lami ngiyaqalisa ukuzwa imoto eziduma ngapha. Base besithi hayi kungcono usiphelekezele sihambe imota lezi zizakufica lapha. Kodwa umuntu wakhona engakhuluma isindebele esicacileyo. Wayekhuluma nje kiliza. Wasesithi sebesithi siyengisa indlela emgwaqweni. Wathi hayi liyaphuma lapha nje likhone lapha libe sethi emgwaqweni. Bathi hayi siphelekezela. Wase hamba labo. Bathe sebe kukhoneni ukuthi baye emgwaqweni. Bathi hayi siphelekezela nje sihambe sixoxa. Base behamba. Ngabona isikhathi sesingani sesiside. Ngase ngiphuma. Sengisime eceleni kwendlu. Ngizwe abantu abasazwakala. Kuthe ngesikhatshana ngezwa sehlapha umkhosi. Mayibabo wabambelela ipholu eyayile bhakane elibhaliwe ibizo. Wabambelela ipholu liyana yazi yagoba. Kuthi ukuthi bamthatha wala lokho ekhuluma ehamba labo ekhuluma sibili ehamba labo. So kwaze kwaphela kwathi nya ngasala ngasengisiyavusa abantwana abafana nje abancane. Ngithi vuka nini ubaba limzwile ehlaba umkhosi. Bathi ngathi kuthi ukuthi ngabantu labanade belapha. Bathi ngabangaphi ngathi angibazi. Abantwana babuyela yathabuyela. Kuthe ngelikade ngalunguza ngabona kuphuma abantu kokulamabele amanengi eduzane ekhaya. Ngabona kuphuma abantu abaningi khonapho sebelandela. Ngesikhatshana ngezwa imota sezidlula emgwaqweni zikhamba kahle kahle. Zadlula zahamba. Yikho lapho kwaphelela khona ubaba zange siphinde simuzwele ukuthi ungaphi. Impilo yaba nzima njengokuthi nxa uvele wasukela uhlezi lo baba nxa ukhangele wena kuyabe sokunzima ngoba abantwana abaningi babesesikolo. Babebulawa esikolo. Mina ngangilabancinyane nje ababefunda ugrade 7 eSt Joseph. So yabanzima kakhulu ukuthi ubone ukuthi uvunile amabele ungahambisa njani kugrain njani. Kwangivela nzima kakhulu. Akuzange ke kube lozwelo ngitsho lokubuzayo ngitsho lokuthini. Kwathuleka nje kwathi tu.
Sengitsho ngilumoya ukuzwa lokuthi bahamba njani ukuthi basuka baqonda njani azange isizwe lutho kuze kube namhlanje.
Mntanami, hayi bengithaba ngisithi umlimo usasezweni wasinika abancedisi. Manje nxa abancedisi sokunje.
Kithi sathi sibuzwa kwaba buhlungu ukuthi hawu kanti lo ube lo moya wona lo ukuthi akhuphe lelo litshe nxa sasilungisela ukuthi sizakuya khona sizwe sokuthi ilitshe kalisekho. Hayi ezinhliziyweni kwasebenza.
Over to the banner over there and have a little chat with our videographer guys. Mr. Vasani Bafana, I'd like to call him to please give us the vote of thanks.
A lovely microphone for the vertically challenged. You know, stories are painful, but stories must be told. I wish I had given this vote of thanks after our guest of honor had spoken. At times we take what is deep for granted. We joke about Gukurahundi. Yeah, it's one of those things that we talk about. But when the people who have experienced it tell their story, you don't want to search for verification. Gukurahundi is an important issue. It's a national issue. My role is to give a vote of thanks. At the onset, I want to thank Sipho Malunga for agreeing to grace this festival and to speak to us. In fact, he, at the onset of his presentation, he did say, Gukurahundi is not an easy story to talk about. Gukurahundi is like death that you never get used to. You attend so many funerals, you weep, but each time is different, is deep, is personal, is acerbic, it is emotional. Sipho, thank you very much for narrating a difficult narrative and for telling us about how ingrained and deep the issue of torture, violence, killing, and the framing of genocide. From independence up to today, I thought we were living in a different era where we will no longer describe what is happening as having the roots in 1980. But here we are, it is there. A positive is that we can discuss this issue today. Thank you for opening the story broadly and deeply. Thank you for making us reflect and for making us not to forget. I want to thank you for giving us the hope that this is a story that can be resolved if we all work together. Government has said, let's talk about it. But you rightly said, let's talk about it not on the terms of only one person or one institution. I think as Zimbabweans, this is a great challenge that we can discuss and find closure to this issue. More particularly, to many people that it has touched beyond Matabeleland, national, as you said. I also want to thank our partners who are here today. Our funders are also here today. More importantly, I want to thank the families who helped share the story that side has documented into this film. I also want to thank each one of you who are present today, not only for bearing witness, but for helping get the story beyond a mere table discussion issue. The challenge is now on all of us. How do we keep that memory alive? We don't just want a memory, but a memory that will be lasting and it will be followed by action. Thank you for attending this festival, and we look forward to you participating again. We thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bafana. The official part of our launch and the documentary launch is officially over at this point in time. We thank you so much for everybody in attendance and also our viewers via Facebook and YouTube. As Mr. Ndebele mentioned earlier, the festival is going to be running for the rest of the week online. Do join us, and if you need more information, please go on to Asakhe Online at site ZW for more information regarding the online platforms. At this juncture, my job is finished. Thank you so much for being a part of this today. Siyabonga, mina igama lami nguSizwakele Ndlovu. And our viewers online, the program is come to an end. Thank you so much again for watching Asakhe Online, and thank you for supporting the channel. At this juncture, for our guests here present, we are going to be having some refreshments, and I would like to invite Mr. Ndebele to lead our guest of honor. But maybe if anything has changed, I will advise you accordingly. Maybe at this point in time, give me a second, I'll just run over there and find out what the arrangement is, or